Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm your host, Shana James, and I'm excited to be here today with Larry Hagner of the Good Dad Project. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
What's going on? Good to see you. It's been a long time.
It's been a while, quite a while, right?
Right.
Larry is a father of 4 boys, which I just have mad respect for. And we're going to talk about the Good Dad Project and parenting. You have the #1 podcast for dads on iTunes. You've been doing this for quite a while. And one of the things I love about you is that you are willing to go first and say what I think can be scary for a lot of men to say. You know, talk about the vulnerability, which I know is not your favorite word, but talk about the feelings and the fears and the things that come up with, you know, having to make decisions and intimacy. And so thank you for being a man who's willing to risk that and show what it takes.
Well, thanks for having me. Topics I do enjoy talking about. Never was comfortable with it in the beginning, but definitely am now.
Awesome. So the Good Dad Project, we're going to talk today about, you know, what it's like to be a dad, some of the mistakes you see men make. I was reading one of your book chapters around patience, and I was just relating to that as a parent of how impatient I can be with my child. And I don't know if you know Jed Diamond, but he is a psychologist who's worked a lot with men's, I think he called it menopause, I guess, for men, in this way that as men get older, there can be more irritability and anger and frustration. And so I think that might tie into what we're talking about today as well.
Yeah, the older I get, the more angry I get. So that's right in line.
I love that you just winked and nobody else can see
right.
that. But it's true, right? You know, one of the things that you said in another conversation is that you have boldly, you know, had conversations with your wife around your intimacy and what you want and need. And I think a lot of that anger can come from not speaking up about what you want and need.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've known my wife for 24 years. We've been married for 17 years. We met in college. So I did all the bonehead mistakes you could possibly think of, and then some, and still continue to do some as we move through our marriage as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was definitely, I would say for the first half of our relationship, and I'm very transparent about this, I was not a good husband. I was not a good communicator. I was an impatient father. It's part of the reason why I'm doing the work.
Doing what you're doing.
Doing what we're doing, right? Yep. But yeah, I had a lot of fear that I think a lot of men have, as far as like, well, I don't want to ask for something because then I could be rejected.
Yeah.
And I don't want to tell her what I really need or want, because what if she thinks it's weird, or what if she tells me no to that? And you know what I noticed was there was a lot of guilt, shame, even like this, you know, this reflection of selfishness in a way. Like, well, if I ask for something, am I being selfish?
Right. Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's not that way now, though. And I would say it hasn't been that way for 5 years. But you know, I would definitely say the one thing that was a game changer for my wife and I was communication. And I think we really bounced that word a lot around, like, oh, I just want better communication. But we don't really know what that looks like. So
yeah, I'm curious what it's looked like for you guys.
Yeah. So I did the typical thing where if my wife came to me with something, it could have been anything, I want to fix it. right? Which I know you women love that, right?
We love it. It's
Yeah,
the
you love
best.
it. I used to approach every conversation we had with expectation and agenda. It's kind of like if you were to have a conversation with a man. It's like, if I'm going to come talk to you, it's because I expect something to come out of the conversation and I have an agenda, right? It's like that task-oriented thing.
Have you ever seen that chart of like how a man's mind works and how a woman's mind works?
Oh no, but you got me fascinated now.
Oh my God. And a woman, it's like swirls and roller coasters and like, you know, all like floral designs, you know, as a woman's, you know, and then a man is like straight arrow.
Yep.
Here's the agenda, right? And woman's like, oh, okay, let's go over here. Oh yeah, but now, okay, we're getting there.
Yeah.
I imagine that's frustrating.
You know, I mean, but I think that that's a dynamic that, you know, if we expect, so I think in relation to that, what I do now, what I have done now for a while is come to every conversation with curiosity and appreciation.
Beautiful.
And it's like, how do you do that? There's been one quote. So I got about a year and a half ago, I got certified in appreciative inquiry exchange. Are you
No, but I mean, appreciation is one of my favorite things in the world. So, and inquiry as well. So that's exciting.
Yeah. It's a way to facilitate conversations within teams or within individuals. And it's a way to create psychological safety in an environment where someone feels very comfortable talking about anything that they want. And it's also a coaching tactic and technique for the person who's receiving it to appreciate the fact that, like, hey, this might not be the greatest news I want to hear, but I appreciate you having the courage to tell me because now I know where we're at. Right.
Yes, exactly. I just want to double click on that. Right. It's like if we are in the middle of a conversation and we're focusing on all the negatives or why this isn't going perfectly, it feels really different to the other person. Then thank you for actually bringing this to me. I know this is hard for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And, you know, going back to that appreciative inquiry training, there's one quote that I really learned from that. And that is, however someone is operating, it makes total sense to them.
Right.
It may not make sense to us, but it makes total sense to them. So if
you can start to understand, you go.
Get inside their world and truly understand, you know, and remove myself from like being attached to this thing that this person's doing. Right. Yeah. So for instance, if my wife were to come to me, I'll give you two separate stories. If my wife were to come to me and be like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out. Like Christmas stuff isn't taken down. These kids are driving me crazy. Every time I turn around, there's a mess and this kid won't get off the screen. Before I'd be like, well, why are you getting so upset about it? We don't have to get it done right away. And like, why don't you tell the one kid to get off the screen? Like, you know, take their phone away. And, you know, like we have all the time in the world. Why are you so upset? I don't do that anymore.
And thank you for not doing that anymore. She thanks you for not doing that anymore.
She does. And so now what I do is I'm fascinated by a technique that Chris Voss teaches, which is tactical empathy. And, you know, sounds like, feels like, looks like. And so if my wife feels like that's upsetting, and I can imagine, like, yeah, I get it, you know.
Right. You empathize with her.
Yeah. And then when you came on my show, you pointed out the how might we question. I use that a lot instead of why can't we? Right. How might we?
How might we?
Yeah. How might we work together? And how can I best support you right now? What feels right?
Right. And even that, just how might we work together and how can I support you right now? Like those are music to my ears.
I love that. Yeah. So that it's much different. And there's a part of me as a guy, and I have to shut it off. It's like, well, if I say, how can I best support you right now? What feels right? There's that part of me. It's like, well, you're not giving her anything of value if you're not solving the problem. Yes. So like, what is that? You know, but at the same time, like that's received so much better than, well, you should do this. And I don't understand why you're so upset and all these other things. Right.
Oh my God. Right. Cause it's so negating in a way. It's like, yes, I can understand the positive intention of, I want to help you, but we're not connected yet. We're not on the same team yet.
Right. Or just even allowing someone that psychological safety. This goes with kids. It goes with your marriage, even people you work with. If you can be that calm. Yeah. Wow. Sounds like that's really overwhelming. Tell me more. And don't use the word why either, because why has the subconscious ability to put somebody in a corner, right? Yes. Tell me more about that. You're inviting that person in to just release whatever it is that they're holding on to, right? And you're doing it in a way where you're not condescending to whatever it is their feelings are. You're actually emotional validation.
Right. And that feelings are okay. And I'm thinking about, as you're talking about this, you know, this works so beautifully with children as well. If we just bypass the fact that they're having feelings to fix whatever it is, they don't actually get to understand how to navigate being an emotional being in the world.
I totally agree. And I think taking that step further real quick, just a segue with psychological safety in kids. We live by a quote in this house, and you have to with 4 boys.
Nice.
And that is, your honesty and your ownership is celebrated and not punished.
Oh, wow. That's inspiring.
And how that unfolds is that if the kids have done something wrong, the fact that you told me what it was, that's celebrated. And I won't punish you for that. You're not grounded. I'm not taking away your phone. You can still play your PlayStation.
Yeah.
And because we've done that over and over and over, we turn honesty and ownership into learning moments. So like my son would be like, hey, how was your day? Oh man, not so good. I had finals. I got a D on that final. Okay. Yeah. Hey, thanks for telling me. What do you think the miss was? Like, as far as like, if you were to do that over again, what would you do different? Like, I should have studied more. Okay, great. So maybe it's not a D after all. Maybe we learned something. What are you going to do next time?
Awesome.
And that's how we celebrate it, right? Versus like, they tell me they got an A, we get an email from the teacher, they actually got a D, and you're like, hey dude, like, come on. Yeah. Right. And I love the fact that the kids feel so comfortable, especially my 14-year-old.
Yeah. To actually talk to you and tell you what's really going on.
Well, that kid, he'll be 15 in a month, and he tells me things so openly. Like, I'm talking like personal things, and I was like, wow, I would have never said that to my parents. Like, I would have never said that.
You built that trust.
Yeah. So, creating psychological safety. So back to your question, creating psychological safety, appreciation and curiosity, emotional validation, not asking the question why, tactical empathy, like those powerful, very powerful things to learn in communication.
Yeah. Those are great, concrete. And I'm also thinking about how you brought in learning moments with your kids and, what might it look like for couples to actually have learning moments as well, right? Like, hey, let's look at what just happened here. And this didn't go exactly the way we wanted. And instead of being on opposite teams and attacking each other for it, like, what if we looked at it together to see, what do we learn? How can we make this better?
Yeah. Yeah. Look at it through the lens of curiosity, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Curiosity is one of my favorite things. Like when, it's funny when couples come or when I work with someone who's like, oh, I know my wife or I know my partner or something. And I'm like, really? God, I hope you don't, because we're constantly growing and changing. And there's so many things that you probably will never know about your partner.
Mm-hmm. I agree. We just released a brand new resource called 21 Days to an Extraordinary Marriage. And in one of the emails, it lists 25 questions that most likely you haven't ever asked your wife, or you haven't asked her since you've been dating.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
Yeah.
So I have a set of 36 questions. You know how that New York Times 36 questions to fall in love? And then I was like, oh, I want to make 36 more questions, like the advanced version. So now we have to compare our questions. That would be amazing.
That would be amazing. I would love to see yours, because I'm always like, my wife has already heard all the ones that, so I would love more.
Nice. Yeah, I want to see yours too. Okay, we'll definitely do that. And we'll put the links to them too.
That'd be great. Yeah.
So, all right, being a dad of 4, and, being a conscious communicator at this point and knowing men as you do, right? Like, what are some of the things that dads experience or kind of pitfalls that happen that you could make it easier for them to either get out of or not fall into in the first place?
That's such a good question. I think there's a couple of things. Number one is patience. I just released a course on that 6 months ago. Nice. I took 650 podcast episodes and a couple thousand hours in masterminding and condensed them into 37 minutes into a course.
Wow.
But so the answer to your question is 2, patience, and then silently or even out loud sabotaging yourself. And I'm happy to take each one in whatever order.
Let's go. Which one do you feel more excited about first?
I mean, we can talk about self-sabotage. I think that one will be shorter. So what I've found with most men is our internal dialogue. There's like a bully between our ears a lot of times, and we don't say it out loud. And every question that we answer is 3 answers: fine, good, busy. How's life? Good. How's work? Oh, we're busy. Yeah, we're busy. How's the wife? They're fine. Yeah, we're fine. Yeah. And
gives so much of a window into what's really going on in there.
Yeah, we're very surface. So self-sabotage. I had Mark Devine, who came on the podcast early on. He's a former Navy SEAL commander, and he's like the host of the Unbeatable Mind podcast. And he said one quote when he came on the show, and that is, the quality of our life is determined by the quality of our questions.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's so true. Whenever anything bad happens to us, or sometimes even good happens to us, we're like, why can't I just be a better communicator?
Yes.
Why can't I be a more patient father?
Yeah.
Shouldn't I be able to know how to do this better? So I did two things there. I asked the why can't I question.
Yep.
I took a big heaping should on myself, right? And men love to do that, should.
Yeah.
Should on myself. I should do this. I should do that. I shouldn't do that. Or why can't I fill in the blank, whatever that is. If you find yourself doing that quietly or even out loud, don't. Instead, I love the how might I or how might we question.
Yeah.
Because our brains are like Google. Whatever question you put in that search bar, like, why can't it be a more patient father?
We start finding evidence. We start finding answers and possibilities.
Exactly. If you put into Google, we actually did it one time. Why can't I be a more patient father? Like the answers came up. Well, this is why you can't be more patient because of all these things.
Right. Well, it's kind of like walking into a wall. You're like, okay, well, great. Here are all the reasons, but it doesn't actually move you forward in any way.
Doesn't at all. Right. But and we did the same thing. How might I be a better, more patient father? And all these resources, like, this is how you could. So our brains are no different. If you say, you know what, I had a bad moment with my kids. How might I recover?
Yes.
And make this and pivot and do something better or salvage the situation. Right. And that could show up using that one question. Whenever you hear yourself saying, why can't I? How might I? Is so simple, really powerful. But our default is to go that why can't I? So that's the sabotage part.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. I really do have that sense of that a lot of people don't know that we're living inside of questions, right? Yeah. That we are creating our reality or what we see based on the questions that we're asking. And so, I often say to men, well, you asked that question like a statement. It was like you put a period on the end of it instead of a big question mark, right? You didn't really seem curious about that. So, if it's like, why is my wife treating me like this? Right. Okay, great. It would be interesting to know some of those answers for that one. Sure. But the question, or why isn't this going well? Okay, you can come up with some of those answers, but then it's not generative or creative of like, how could I shift this, right? There's less empowerment there.
I love that you use that word generative, because when we were going through that appreciative inquiry training, generative questions, that's exactly what that is, because it generates more solutions and more how could we advance? How could we be better, right?
Yeah.
Patience. I mean, standing nose to nose, toes to toes with men, and kind of like our friend Tripp. I've been all over the board as far as coaching. I mean, everything from the common guy who goes to his job from 9 to 5. I've coached some professional athletes and 2 Navy SEALs. Yeah. And I never thought in a million years I'd be coaching those people. But at the same time, we're all human and we all struggle with the same things. I haven't met a man in my life that was like, oh yeah, I'm like Yoda. I'm so patient. Right. Right. All the Star Wars geeks out there who are listening, which I'm one of them, by the way.
Yes, me too.
All right, cool. But patience, people always think my patience is defined in the moment where I'm being challenged. That's not the case at all. Patience, literally, you can build emotional capacity and space and patience the moment that you hit your feet on the floor in the morning.
Wow. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, you can like literally, and this is all in the course that I just created. So like, for instance, what do you think most people do in the morning when they wake up in the first 5 minutes?
Check their phones.
Check their phone. It's their alarm clock, right? It's their alarm clock. Oh, like, let me get on Insta real quick. I haven't even gotten the shower or my coffee, but like, let's see what's going on.
Oh my God.
So what happens there, think about that. If you're checking social media, you're probably going through the highlight reel of somebody else's life and checking how many people liked or didn't like your thing or whatever else, right? It doesn't really matter. Yep. The text messages, like whoever texted you while you were asleep or the night before or whatever else, suddenly you are now on somebody else's agenda and you have
exactly what I was just thinking, right? Their agenda, not yours.
Their agenda. You open up your email, you get an email from your boss. Hey, I didn't get that report. Your expense report's late. You got to go blah, blah, blah. You're like, holy crap, I haven't been up for 5 minutes and fight or flight, right? No one's dying or you're not being chased by an animal, but those hormones are firing, right? Yes. So that's rule number 1. Make sure you have a solid morning routine. No device. I don't have any devices for 90 minutes.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It's a game changer. I wake up.
I was just going to say, it sounds like to highlight, you were saying like, all right, so you could be on your own agenda. You can be creating what you want as opposed to being dragged along by someone else's.
Totally. Yeah. My routine in the morning, I wake up at 4:30. I'm in the gym by 5. I'm at home by 6:45 because I take my boys to school.
Wow.
And I always try to come up, when I'm in the gym, I try to come up with a question, like a question of the day that we can talk about on the way to school. I don't even get into the mix of work until 7:30, 8 o'clock. So I'm up for 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours before you start working. That's
Right.
incredible.
And you don't have to do that. But
God, that is inspiring too, that you get up at 4:30 to create that time for yourself.
I'm kind of sick and deranged that way. Yeah. But you don't even have to do that. Even if you just carved out the first 30 to 45 minutes, to where you just didn't check your phone, and you maybe got into a gratitude practice, or if you're a spiritual person, like maybe a Bible study of some sort, something like that, to where you're pouring something into you and you're not on somebody else's thing, right? That's number one with patience. Number two, because we're human, skill sets as far as calming ourselves down, because a lot of us think pretty poorly of ourselves, even if we don't get externally angry, but we're internally angry. Like we're pissed, like our kids are doing X, and like, oh my God, I can't believe how much rage I feel right now. I must be terrible.
Oh God. I like normalizing that as a parent, right? That we do feel rage. Even though we love our kids dearly.
We do, right? But if you think about it, like, this is one thing that gives me a sense of humor with our kids. Like, a lot of times I'll look at what they're doing and I'll be like, I'm basically talking to a college drunk right now. Like, right? You know, I mean, like,
even though they're like 12 years old or something.
Right. Because I literally had to say to my 12-year-old not too long ago, like, please don't take your cheese and crackers in the bathroom when you're taking a dump. I literally had to say that out loud. I mean, when I'm saying
things we never thought we would say. I have so many of those moments of just like, I never thought I would, ask you to stop farting while we're doing so. I can't even remember one right now, but all those things, like, I never thought I would say that out loud.
Yeah. Which, by the way, you saying the word fart and like just brought the 8-year-old out of me. I just had to kind of laugh. But even knowing like our triggers. So like, for instance, if I'm all 4 kids are going absolutely berserk and I'm just like, I'm going to scream right now.
Yeah.
What I'll do is I'll do certain tactics like diaphragm breathing. Sounds very simple, but that's what activates your rest and digest. Shallow chest breathing, that will do nothing but agitate you. There are other things you can do too, like I'll wiggle my right thumb while trying to wiggle my right pinky toe, of my left thumb while trying to wiggle my right pinky toe.
Interesting.
Another tactic I like to use is counting backwards from 50 to 0 in increments of 3.
Wow.
Because if you do it from 10 to 0, you can do that on automatic pilot. You've been able to do it. You were like 7, right?
Sounds like it's important to counteract that automatic pilot.
Exactly. Yeah. And then there's another element. I don't want to give away obviously everything in the course, but there's another element. It's called the after action review. Because there are 6 things that we can kind of do throughout the day. It's 6 modules long, but there's one thing that's very human about us and about the course and everything else. And that is, you're going to screw up. You're going to screw up. Sometimes you'll probably screw up once a day, but it's really important to identify, where did I miss? And how might I do that differently the next time it presents itself? Now that I know, like, okay, like, hey, I was triggered. I didn't create space by doing something wacky with my thumb and pinky toe, or I didn't count backwards. I just went.
I just reacted.
So how might I in the future create that space and that awareness that I need to do something before I say something, right? Or yell something.
It's so powerful. I was thinking about that with something you said before, to humanize, like, we're going to make mistakes. There's no way, there's no perfect person. There's no perfect parent. There's no perfect husband. Right. And to be constantly growing and learning. I often call it the debrief. What did you call it? The
same thing. Debrief. Yeah. Debrief to win, or after action review.
The after action review. I love that. Right. It's like, okay, what went well here? What would I change? How could you can insert questions like, how could I feel closer to my kids? Right. I was thinking about that when you were talking about all those moments or the ways to have patience or to pause. And then I think we get clearer on what's the outcome I really want here. Sometimes I also think about it like, how do I look to the future and help my kid not be an asshole? Like, I might have to suffer certain things in this moment to help my kid not be an asshole 20 years from now.
Yeah. Just how can you raise them to be a good, compassionate human being?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So good.
Does that answer your question?
The patience part?
Patience and self-sabotage.
Yeah. That those are 2 pitfalls that men can fall into. Yeah, while parenting. I mean, I think you spoke to such a powerful one too, of like, there are going to be such intense feelings I think kids bring up. I thought before you were going to say something like, I realized I was looking at myself, right? It's like when you said I'm looking at a college drunk in a way, I thought you were going to say, oh yeah, I used to do those things. So I think as parents, we are either given kids who help us grow and learn, or we, are given kids who have done the things that we used to do in the past. And so then we're kind of reliving our childhood while also trying to figure out how to be adults to these children and guides and mentors. So it's a complicated thing.
It's one of the hardest things out there. I mean, take your education. You have a master's degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
In psychology,
mm-hmm.
right? Okay. So I don't know if you've ever thought of it this way. I had one of my guests come on and talk about this. So like, let's take your master's degree in psychology. That took you 6 full years, undergrad and then graduate, right?
Right.
Okay. In order just to be a police officer, 990 hours of training.
Wow.
Right?
Oh God, I see where you're going with this.
Right. To be a surgeon, it's like 8 years of medical
10 years,
school.
8 years. Yeah.
2 years of fellowship and residency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Marriage, parenting,
0.
None, right? 2 most important relationships and jobs you'll have. And yet we just so putting it back to that, can you imagine going to an OBGYN, you're pregnant, and you're like, yeah, I'm due next month. And be like, hey, great. You know what? I actually didn't go to medical school, but I know there's been lots of babies born. I've seen a couple, but don't worry, you're in good hands. We'll figure it out as we go.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we're good. No. But we would never think about doing that in that aspect of our life. But yet, in parenting and marriage, most of us are just like, well, it's just kind of what I do. And I think I understand it. And if I don't, I'll figure it out. Right.
Well, part of what I love that you're speaking to too is that, again, I never like to assume all men do anything or all women do anything, but there is a tendency I've seen with men to feel bad if they don't know how, right? If they don't know what would be in their mind the right way, the best way, the most effective. And so I could imagine that would keep many men from learning about intimacy or about relationship or about parenting. And that, I love that you're bringing these courses for men who are dads to finally learn some of these things to make it easier.
Yeah, we have a mastermind community as well. So we have 500 plus guys that do life with us. But one thing I've noticed about men in particular, sometimes they like to educate in secret. Right. So
yes.
That's what the courses are for, because I don't want to tell anybody I have an issue with this. I'm just going to buy this and do this on my own. Right. Yeah. So yeah, we got guys like that too.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being a mentor for men and for dads, and for that validation of, you're not supposed to know how to do this. You haven't studied this, right? Life just throws this at you. And how can you, again, be empowered or generative, creative? I love those pieces.
Well, thank you. This was a pleasure. It's fun.
Yeah. What if we were to end this and, you hadn't, is there something that you feel like you haven't said yet, or a topic we haven't covered that feels really important?
Yeah. I'll just close with this. Like I said, I just launched this. It's free resource. Don't ask anything of anybody, but it's 21 days to an extraordinary marriage. I'm sure you probably know these statistics, but obviously the divorce rate's 50%.
Mm-hmm. For first marriages, and even higher for second and third marriages.
See, yeah, there you go on that too.
Yep.
But here's the scary thing, and this is what a lot of people don't know. The 50% that stay together, 1/3 of those marriages actually can say that their relationship is working.
Yeah.
And then the next
not surprised.
Yeah. So the next 1/3, they're like, it's okay. Not everything I wanted, but I guess I don't want to break up, but it's all right, I guess. And then the final 1/3, they're completely emotionally and physically disconnected.
Yeah.
And they're just living under the same roof.
Yeah.
They're roommates. So, and that's unfortunate. So if you look at all of marriage, only about 15%, I actually think that's a generous number.
Yeah.
Is actually doing pretty darn well. So what the final thing that I'll say is, marriage is a skill, and this. Communication is a skill. Parenting is a skill. And it's unfortunate that, so for instance, if I want to go be a psychologist, I know I need to go get a bachelor's and a master's.
Right.
But I don't understand, if I want to create an extraordinary marriage, I know I need self-care, partnership, friendship, lovers, and I need to know how to communicate. And under communication, there's tactical empathy, there's mirrors, there's labels, there's emotional validation. there's support, venting, space, all these things that we just don't know about. And that's okay if you don't know about it. But at the same time, like if we're open to learning skills, just being open to be like, I'm just going to learn one new thing. I think that changes the game for us. Just knowing like, okay, I don't have to have this all figured out, but I can go learn it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll end on.
I like that. And especially that part about one new thing. I often find that with my clients where I'm like, okay, go back and try this one thing in your relationship or with your parenting. And, lo and behold, they come back and they're like, holy shit, we had a conversation we've never had, or it went better in this way, or suddenly I could see her in a whole new light, or whatever it may be. So beautiful.
Totally agree.
Thank you so much for being here today. And where can men find more of you?
Yeah, so you can find everything we're doing at gooddadproject.com. That will change here soon. We're going to change everything over to the Dad Edge, but don't worry, you'll be able to find it at gooddadproject.com. We'll redirect everything. Right. The podcast is called the Dad Edge Podcast. You can find it on basically anywhere podcasts are downloaded. I think we're on Pandora now even. So you can find us anywhere podcasts are downloaded. And if you want 21 Days to an Extraordinary Marriage, like I said, it's just an email resource. It gives you 3 challenges. It also helps you develop some skill sets around communication. You'll find that on our homepage at gooddadproject.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You bet.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.